Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Ask the Nanny. It is Monday, March the 15th. Can you believe we're in the first, almost done with the first quarter of the year already? Oh, okay. So tonight I have with me Miss Angelina, and let me turn my phone off so that I won't keep buzzing because apparently when I go live, everybody wants to contact me, but
Of course.
no. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Miss Angelina introduce herself, tell you a few things about herself and what she does and how she does it while I share this with my groups. If you are watching, please share with groups. Please share with your friends, invite them if you have problems with your getting your kids to eat well, um, setting boundaries with the family to get the kids to eat well, this is the place you need to be. And Angela's going to give us some tips and tricks and other things. I do apologize. Toya was supposed to be with us tonight, but she has two sick little girls, so she's on mommy duty. And when your kids are sick, everything else goes out the window. I know this. I have three grown children, and when they get sick, I'm like, "What you doing? What did you take? How you doing? Okay, call me when you get all of that." Yes, I go into mama mode, and my youngest will be 31 in a few days.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
yeah, I'm still a mama 24/7. Regardless of what happens to my babies. So I'm going to let Angelina tell you about herself and give us a fun fact while I share this with the groups on Facebook.
Hi, I'm Angelina from Adventurous Eating. I run a private group on Facebook titled Adventurous Eating. And in that private group, we talk all about food and feeding for infants, toddlers, and beyond. So I'm a parent coach. I'm a former nanny of over a decade, and I have developed a system for helping parents and caregivers learn to feed infants in a way that helps them adopt healthy eating, adventurous eating habits for life. So I really have a strong focus on early introduction of a wide variety of foods and uh, a healthy healthy stress on the feeding relationship that infants and caregivers and parents have. So, everyone thinks that getting kids to eat in healthy ways is a struggle or a challenge. And I'm here to say that there are strategies that you can implement from a very early age, even for older eaters like toddlers and children, that can help them adopt strategies for or help them adopt habits that can stay with them for life. So, early implementation and feeding strategies to prevent picky eating and really instill a love of all foods, all different kinds of foods, including green foods, spiced foods,
Ew, I don't
textured
like
foods, all those good things that you want your babies to eat. I often tell my mamas during all of my trainings, I tell them that everything they want for their families, everything you want for your family happens on the other end of that spoon or on the other side of that tray or on the other side of your feeding table. And what that means is the relationship that we have with our children at meal times is often one of the most foundational ways that we can parent and guide children.
Ooh, say that again for the people in the back. I don't think they heard you.
the the relationship that we have with our children, I always say that you will never have a better opportunity to parent your children or guide your children than every time that you feed them. So providing guidance at the table, this relationship that we have with children at meal times is really foundational for who they believe themselves to be. Um, this happens at meal times. This healthy relationship that we have with children happens across the table from each other.
Exactly. All kinds of conversations about their day, who they play with, what's important to them, what's not important to them. And I have found that usually when they just start eating and they're conversating, they will eat more than you think they will because they're just, yeah, and this happened and that happened and this, guess what else? And they're just steady eating. They're not
Right.
focusing on what's on the plate necessarily as to how excited they are about telling mom and dad what's happening. Yes, you're listening to me. I'm important. This is my moment. And sometimes you have that sibling rivalry. It's my turn. Let me have a turn.
Right.
So,
But I'd like to ask the people listening right now if they know, if they could make a choice, if they had to pick between what they thought was more important when it comes to feeding children, is it what we feed? Is it the food we feed? Or is it the way that we feed? I'd be curious to know what your thoughts on the difference or
mm,
what's more heavily weighted for long-term outcomes and success. Is it the foods that we feed or is it the ways that we feed? Is this the relationship that we have at the table?
is it the foods that we feed or relationship at the table? One versus the other. So which one wins out? Is that what you're saying? Which
Which
one is
one
more
is more
important?
directly related
Okay.
to positive long-term outcomes for children? And that includes, I just did a live class on this in my group a couple
Mm,
weeks ago about, I asked the question of my members what they thought was more important. Is it the what we feed or how we feed that most directly impacts the success, the outcomes, the positive outcomes that we have for our children?
hmm.
The answer is probably, fairly surprising because people don't expect to hear that it's really more the relationship that we have with each other at the table that is directly responsible for long-term positive outcomes. And that is socially, academically, the things that are more directly correlated to positive outcomes and avoiding unintended outcomes is this relationship at the table. So having family meals and that positive relationship we have at the table is more directly correlated to a reduction in teen pregnancies, teen drug abuse, gang relations, those things. Having these healthy relationships at the table with at least one parent is more directly responsible for healthy outcomes than even having the resources to buy healthy foods. So it's that important, the way that we feed versus, obviously what we feed is important, but the relationship that we have at the table is just, it's just a critical, important part of growing up and like finding out who you are.
This is true. Now, I still need my fun fact from you.
Okay. Give a fun fact. Well, I think that's a pretty fun fact, isn't it? Knowing that even if you had to feed fast food on a more regular basis, that you could feel a little bit more comfortable about knowing that your children still have a very good probability of turning out all right as long as you sit with them and validate them at meal times. That's a pretty good relieving fact, I think. Maybe not so fun, but
No, I was
pretty good.
talking about one fact specifically about you, not about
Oh,
what you do, but about
sure.
you.
About me. Okay. Well,
About you. Personal. It's a personal thing.
this
We're
is
just
pretty
trying
fun.
to get to
I
know you.
decided, no, my phone's ringing. um, Sorry about that. Fun fact about me. In my 40s, I decided that I was going to complete a bucket list item and compete in and win a bikini competition against women half my age. And I did
And
that.
did
And
you
I
win?
did that. I did.
I'm talking about. Show them what
Right?
we working with. Okay.
Seriously. So my introduction to food and feeding and nutrition really came from initially a lifelong love of health and fitness for myself, and then for other women, and then specifically for moms and families as I became a nanny and responsible for feeding.
Okay, so if you all are watching and you have questions, please feel free to type them in the comments. We are, if in case you joined us late, we are talking about food, nutrition, picky eaters, setting boundaries, the way we feed versus what we feed, how we feed versus what we feed. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
now I want to touch on the fast food when you said the fast food, because I know when my kids were growing up, Friday nights were that was their night for pizza or whatever they wanted to eat.
Yeah.
That was when they got their allowance. So we went to the mall and they could spend their money on their food. That's the first place they hit up was the food court. And
Yeah.
then whatever they had left, they went shopping. And
Wonderful.
that was our way of I gave them free reign to buy whatever they wanted to, as long because sometimes they would save some money, sometimes they wouldn't. I just made sure that when they got their allowance, that they put some into savings. They saved
Sure.
some, and I didn't play the tax man on them.
Right. Like, you have to put this away.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
you got to pay taxes on this because this is your income for the week. So,
Right.
no, I didn't do that, but I did. What I did do was I opened up them a savings account for each one of them, and we would stop by the bank, and then we would go to the mall or wherever we were going shopping, and that's what we would do. And if they wanted junk food that day, they got junk food that day. But because I had a home daycare, I was responsible. There was so you got to have so much vitamin A, so much vitamin K, vitamin D, vitamin C. You can't have this, you can't have that.
Yeah.
You got to do that. So when my kids grew up, they grew up on a regimen of healthy foods because I had to.
Yeah.
And my mom didn't make us junk food babies. We became junk food kids when we got old enough to have a job and go drive and get the junk food.
Right.
But
Exactly.
until then, and even now, I love a hearty meal, but with fruits and
Hearty
vegetables.
home cooked meal. Yeah.
Yes, a hearty home cooked meal. But that junk food, we had a Friday night, and then Sunday was game day. So there was cheese dip and chips and all
Yeah.
that. But if I can get you to eat Sunday through Thursday
Yeah.
and one meal on Saturday that's decent, then I think I've done well. And
Yeah.
you
If
get to have
you,
a choice in what you want to eat on several days.
yeah, if it's actually very important not to, um, you know, restrict food, because that's a lot of where, if we make foods forbidden, if we ban certain foods,
Mhm.
and we make it a thing that no, you can't ever eat cookies, or no, you can't ever have candy, or you can't ever have cake or cupcakes, then what's going to happen is, chances are, now, if you can do that for the first 1,000 days of your child's life, right, from newborn to 3, if you can do that for 1,000 days, you've probably set them up for a pretty good life of healthier eating, because you've helped them develop a flavor palette early that really doesn't have this desire for, craving for these, junk foods, right? These high sugar, high fat, high salt foods. But the more we restrict foods, meaning they become off limits, there's a saying that we covet the thing we cannot have. And the minute your baby goes to middle school or high school or wherever for some kids, it's college, right?
Yeah.
There's some kids, their first experiences with free range eating or having the ability or the power to really feed themselves comes in way late. And because they have never had this experience around it and actually a restriction upon it, they go crazy with it, right? They kind of
Yeah.
like binge on it. Whereas what you did early was you gave them permission to enjoy these foods at times when we had times that it wasn't an everyday thing, and it wasn't something that I think in time they probably understood that you had to feed in a certain way because you were responsible for other people's children.
Mhm.
As they got older, they probably saw that. But, you gave them permission to enjoy all of the foods and have the ability to make their own decisions about those foods. And that's a really powerful thing. That's a really great way to empower your children in their decisions. Because today I'm willing to bet they probably eat pretty well. Like they probably have a healthier balance of eating competence. It's people who overly restrict that often have problems with food because the minute you tell me I can't have something,
The brain clicks and
I
says,
want it.
I
You're
want it.
right. I want it more than
What
anything.
is in there that I
Okay,
can't have?
right.
Why are they holding back? There must be something in there that they don't want me
Correct.
to. And you're just like, okay.
Exactly. Right. So that's true for, again, like there aren't many recommendations from the American Dietetic Association for children under 2. However, they do say no added sugar, no added salt, stay away from trans fats. That's, seemingly common sense. There are people who, have to feed convenience foods from very early ages. And there's
Mhm.
still ways that we can, help people eat in healthier ways without demonizing any food, right? There are ways to, if you go to Culver's, you can get broccoli. I always like to tell people, like, you can go to there are healthier options that you can get conveniently. So, we can do that and not, throw, it's the saying, throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't have to throw away all of our nutrition just because we're eating in a convenient way. But you did a great service by your children by allowing them to have those exposures to all foods.
Yes, yes. I mean, you get apple slices instead of French fries. You
Totally,
know,
yeah.
and they have the little. This was the last time I went to. They probably don't have them anymore because the last time I went, they had the little cuties. Um,
Yeah.
well,
Those little
orange.
oranges.
Yes, they had the little cuties, and they started adding more fruits.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I noticed some of them that started adding more fruits, not necessarily the vegetables, but they
Right.
started
Exactly.
adding more fruits to make it more healthy. And it
Right.
is, but more than likely that fruit is sweet and they will eat it as
Yep.
opposed to, oh, it's green. Ew,
Right.
I don't like
Exactly.
that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there's a very, I hear all the time from parents who are very worried about picky eating. And, I have helped raise up some really fantastically adventurous eaters, but there seems to be a time of development around 14 months where they all start to get slightly skeptical about food. And, there's a theory about that. If you think, and to me, it makes sense having fed many children. I have seen this thing play out, and it makes total sense to me. But if you think back to our hunting and gathering days, when mom would have been carrying an infant and feeding that infant probably some chewed foods from what she was feeding herself,
Yeah, my mama used to do
teaching.
that to me.
Right. Well, you think about like further back, right? Like way
Yeah.
back, like 10,000 years ago, how we learned to eat. These little babies are testing the foods that mom would say are okay for them, but probably at the time they're walking, mom might have another infant. And so where do you go? You can now walk. So you're probably walking along with mom and starting to forage for yourself. But evolutionarily, like we have developed this ability to understand that in the plant world, green plants are the typically most toxic plants and most deadly plants to human beings. The plants that can kill us are green.
Right.
So it kind of makes sense that these, very intelligent little people now all around this time when they would be walking and possibly foraging for themselves just to help keep themselves safe might get a little bit skeptical about food. And there has never been a time that I've helped someone come up through this stage that they have really dug their heels in and become truly picky eaters, where, it's what we do during this time of selectivity about food that can really help push them through it, or allow them to, be empowered through that time and to continue this adventurous eating and, accepting a variety of foods. But it's what we do at the table, it's our interference at the table that really causes a toddler to dig their heels in and say, you want me to eat that? I'm not going to do it because you want me to do it. And your toddler would rather not eat than not be their own person, right?
Right. They have their own mind at that time, and it's like, no.
Right.
And you say no. And they no, no,
Okay.
no. Yeah.
Okay, little guy, you do what you got to do.
yeah, and you're sitting in there and you're like, well, you need to eat. Come on, let's eat. All right, let's eat. The more you bug them about eating,
The worse
eat
it
your
gets.
food, the worse it gets.
Yep.
And the slower they get, because they're like, they have their little forks and they're like,
Why do you want me to eat this so badly?
and they stab at it and they roll it across the plate and they roll it. Oh, it fell on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
In their minds, I don't have to eat it now. And
Yeah.
you go grab a spoonful and put some more on their plate. That's a battle.
Yeah. So
That's asking for a battle.
yeah, in the adventurous eating group, we talk a lot about, again, the feeding relationship, and it is so much, 90% of the time, and there are children who were born prematurely, or have had some trauma of the mouth early. So if babies were born early, if they've had feeding tubes, if they've had a traumatic birth, if there are sensory processing disorders, these children are outliers, and may need some specific occupational therapy or help, further help for feeding. But for the most part, it's our fault when children really get selective about foods. It's the way that we feed and the ways that we interfere that interrupt our children's natural ability to learn to be intuitive eaters. Because if you look at every mammal on the planet, you look at cows grazing in the field, mama cow is not telling her calf exactly what and how much to eat. She's not telling that baby to eat one more bite, right?
Right.
Baby knows. Baby can go, and we trust newborns to tell us when they're done feeding, but it's there even where our earliest feeding problems happen, when we start, when an infant turns away from us and we've decided we've either pumped so much milk, we've poured so much formula, and we continue the feed, even though your infant is trying to turn away from you. If we're forcing that nipple, and it happens, right? Like, I don't want to waste this milk. I just thought it. I can't use it again.
Especially breast milk.
Exactly.
Oh my!
Liquid gold, right?
Hard for that. You have got to drink this.
Right. Exactly right. And it's those early times when your baby cannot tell you, I'm done. When you're a toddler, they can tell you all done, but they can tell you in other ways when they're growing up that they don't want to continue a feed. And it's our job to listen to that and respect them, right?
Now, I have a question, because it bothers me. I know babies need to gain weight. I know they need to be healthy. And it bothers me. I know pediatricians know their job, but they don't know each child personally like we know the child personally.
Yeah.
And they say, well, your child needs to eat this, and this, and so much per day. And you're shoving and shoving and shoving, because when we go back to the doctor, you have to gain weight. You have to do this. But yet, they've gone from the 0 to 3 months up to the 3 to 6 months close. Their legs are long enough where they're hanging, dangling off of you. I'm like, okay, their head is starting to go from that long head to that moon-shaped head.
Yeah.
The cheeks are like this. They got double cheeks like me.
Stop.
And
You're beautiful, woman. You're beautiful.
Rolls on their leg, on their little thighs.
Yeah.
But you put them on the scale and they say, oh, they're in the 11th percentile, they're in the 15th percentile, they're in the 25th
Yeah.
percentile, they need to gain weight, they need to gain weight, feed them this, feed them that. But at the same time, you're trying to shove this into that baby's mouth and they're gagging, and then you burp them and everything comes back up because they're
Yeah.
too full. That's a message. I am too full. If you stop when I want to stop and feed me, when I need to be fed, the amount that I want to eat, you know, that's when you get the most productivity. I
Yeah.
have seen babies as a newborn care specialist. I've seen mamas fall. Well, the doctor said, the doctor said, the doctor said. I know what the doctor said, but your child is small because grandma is 4'11".
Right. Maybe you're just a small person. Like
Right.
the biggest
You come from
indicator
a
of,
small family,
yeah.
and your baby is not going to grow like every other child grows and
Yeah.
have the same needs that every other child needs because he is an individual. He
Yes.
has his own needs. He doesn't need to, he probably will never spring up. Dad is 5'5". Mama is
Right.
5'2". Grandma is
Right.
4'11". Other grandma is 5 foot. Hello, the genes have a lot to do with your child's uh,
Totally. Yeah.
growth pattern. And
Yeah.
shoving food, giving them a bad relationship with food is not helping.
No, in fact, it could make it worse. That could make it incredibly worse. Like the biggest thing, if you're a mom watching right now and you're concerned about your baby's weight and their percentile, the biggest thing to look for is where they are on their growth curve, right? You will, every time you go to the doctor, they will plot your baby's development along a growth curve. And that's where that percentage comes from. It's against every other baby in that age range of,
Mhm.
never compare your baby to other people's babies. What's important is that your infant is growing along a a a curve that is statistically within a few points of that projected line, right? So when you have two dots and then three, you'll have a pretty good indicator of what that forward growth can look like. And it's big jumps above and below that become concerning. So simply having an infant who's in the 11th percentile shouldn't be as much of an issue for you unless there has been a large jump below where they were. So if your child is growing at a certain trajectory and then all of a sudden their next doctor's appointment, I don't even know what the specific points are that make it concerning. But if your infant then drops too far away from that projected line, then that's something that generally should be addressed by a specialist, or there's something to look at there. But just having an infant who's in a lower percentile doesn't mean that they're an unhealthy weight. And one thing that I always stress with feeders is that your child's relationship with food, now whether that's milk or whether that's solids, is their first consensual relationship. You offer foods and they choose to accept them. And the minute that we're overstepping our job of feeding, when we're overstepping that line in what we should feed, we are only not empowering our children, but we're taking their power away. We're taking their power to learn how to become intuitive eaters, to learn how to listen to their own bodies for what they need and their own hunger cues and their own power and ownership in their body, right? Like this is a violating thing to put something in someone's mouth when they don't want it, right? So that creates problems with feeding long term, or at least it can. Those infant feeding, issues, a baby who has had a feeding tube can develop an issue with spoon feeding or just anything that's not self-feeding because they have this trauma that they do not remember, but it's there and it becomes a problem with feeding. So when we're the ones that, it's at our hands that's happening, that not only creates a feeding problem, but it also creates a relationship problem where your infant might start to resent you, not consciously because they don't know what that is. They don't have rational thought about resentment, but that feeling of distrust is a real thing and can and can be problematic for relationships long term.
Yeah. Now, as a nanny, I have worked with lots of families, and dinner time, some families, yes, they sit and they eat and they talk, and it's a glorious time, and I just, back away and y'all have enjoy yourself. And then there are other times when there's total chaos. Dad's over here doing this, mom's over there doing that. The kids are at the table. Mama, I want this. Mama, I want that. Mama, I want this. Mama, I want... It's almost
Mm.
like Burger King in there. Have it
Short
done.
order cooking, right?
Yes, I'm like, really? Seriously? You getting ready? And I have to hold my peace. And I'm like, that's not your child. That's not your child. That is not your child.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking to myself, if you're always cooking whatever they want to, oh, they can just have peanut butter and jelly. They didn't eat well, so they can just have a peanut butter and jelly. Well, they start to develop habits of, well, I won't eat well, so mama will give me what I want.
That's
I
right.
won't eat this, so they will. Your baby needs to be eating. Your child, if your child is old enough to eat, unless it is super spicy or alcoholic in it, then your baby and child, well, your child should be eating what you're eating at the table.
Yeah, totally.
And
If you don't give them that opportunity to eat a new food, you're essentially telling them that they're not capable of learning, right? If every time we give our kids the opportunity to explore a new food, every time we offer it and they say no, we're empowering them to do that. But every time we're offering it, we're giving them the understanding that, yeah, I believe that you can learn to like this food. I believe that you can learn to like new foods. And when I let you fall back on a couple of staples, usually white foods, right? Like pasta, bread, the things that are just not as nutritional, not as nutritious as all of the other things that you're trying to make for them, right? But
mhm.
every time you offer them foods that are outside of their comfort zone, you're telling them that you believe that they can learn to like new foods. And that's empowering.
Now, how do you, as a nanny, try to work with the parents in saying, look, let's try this with the kids. Let's set some boundaries. Let's set some rules at the table, as to, so we won't have, so you don't feel like you're a short order cook. Because I don't do it. I don't.
Same.
I'm
Right.
just, that is not in my. Oh, I would have to leave because I'm not a peanut butter and jelly. Okay, I want a hot dog. Okay, I want some pasta. Okay, and you got 4 or 5 kids and you got 4 or 5 different meals going on. And how do
Right.
you make that for one child? Unless, I mean,
Right.
peanut butter and jelly, I see that, a hot dog. But then I want some pasta and I want this on it. I want this. This is not a
And
restaurant.
then they don't eat it. They ask
Yes,
for a thing and then they don't eat it.
and
Like, what do you do
but
at that
I
point? Do you
want
force
this.
them to eat it? Right.
There you go. And I'm like, and I'm sitting over in the corner, boy, if you don't eat this food, I spit all this
Right.
food. And I'm
I just made
looking at
this.
mom, I'm like, boy, if you don't eat that food, your mama spit just came home from work all day and you gonna tell her you want something and then you're not gonna eat it. I'm sitting over there like, hold on, hold yourself. Because
Right.
I want to just jump across the table, like, eat this food. But I know that's not my child. And I know I see them becoming that. I mean, to me, that's how they become picky eaters.
That is
That's
exactly how that
that
happens.
that's
Yeah.
how they get to the point of, I don't like that. Oh, that's green.
I
Oh,
only eat 3 foods. Right. Yeah,
the
one of my very first nannying experiences was working with a family of 3 children, and the oldest one um, was probably 6 when I started working with her, and she had pretty severe pickiness around food, and like to the point where if I tried to offer her something at the table that wasn't of the handful of foods, literally handful of foods that she would eat for dinner, she would gag. And way back then, I had no idea how to help her. I had no idea how to help her. I tried, take one bite, you have to try it. These strategies that now I understand do not work, right? Like those, I know that those things don't work. I've learned so much about food so that I never have to I never want to be responsible for a child developing those types of picky eating behaviors. So, there are ways that we as caregivers can really empower the parents that we work with, right? And so I've
Right.
always considered myself to be working with a family and not
Yeah.
for.
With.
And right. So something that I did early was, in this experience with these three children, I had a 6-year-old who wouldn't eat. I had, a 1-year-old who was pretty open, but according to her parents, getting pickier by the day, and a newborn. And all they told me, all the instruction that they gave me was like, she'll only eat these things. She'll eat lots of things, but she's getting she's getting more picky. But the newborn, when he eats, it's your job to feed him fresh food. And they didn't really tell me what that meant, but I knew that it was my job to feed him fresh food. So I started learning all about how kids eat and about fresh food. And, for myself, I was already interested in health and fitness and nutrition to some degree, but I learned everything that I could so that I could help that family. And with every job that I took helping to raise babies, I made it my job to understand how to feed them, and developed, these strategies for really healthy feeding through the things I've learned and through my experiences. But if you're a caregiver and you're not really sure how to do that, obviously joining a group like Adventurous Eating, where you can learn some of the strategies that you can help your families implement, is I highly recommend getting as much education about those things as possible, because not only does it make you a more effective caregiver, but it's also something that you can definitely use to increase your income.
Hello.
Because, right? Because I know a kid, I know as a former nanny, I bumped myself into high profile nanny status because of the fact that I could say, listen, I'm going to teach your babies how to eat. I'm going to cook for them. I'm going to prepare foods for them. But guess what? Your kids are going to eat all the things, and they're going to eat in healthy ways. And you're not going to complain. Like on the weekends, you're not going to have fights about food because they're going to eat the things. And they paid me to do that because they don't know how to do that for themselves. Right.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Mitch
I see
says,
this question here.
I have nanny kids who get to eat their staples foods. They resent and get frustrated as they are not happy with the limited amount of foods. The only option was you don't eat it, then it's a bowl of fiber one.
So what, like giving minimal options, right? So here's the thing with family feeding, or just feeding children in general. No matter how much or how little you think you know about food, I promise you know more about food than that child does. So, as our job as nannies, if you're not getting specific guidance on feeding from parents, or if they have very strict rules about food, for myself, that would be something I would have to, assess the working environment for me to be there, because I had left positions where I was asked to feed children very unhealthy foods. And to me, it didn't feel right. Like I wasn't comfortable with the feeding situation. So it was actually a position that I left. But the way that we feed children is we offer a wide variety of good foods and nutrients, not forbidding groups of foods, because again, like we talked about food restriction and coveting food, but you offer them a meal, and that's the meal that you have. And there are 5 words that you can say to a child. There are a couple of things that you can do to make meal times work for you. And the first thing is making sure that you have planned meals and snacks. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but also 2 snacks. And this is from about a child's first year of age until they leave your house. But having those planned meals so that your child knows that they will eat again at a specific time is very important, because it gives you the power between those times to say, you don't have to eat. Because you know that if you plan out meals that are 3 hours apart and your child decides not to eat a meal, okay, you don't have to eat, But there is no other food until our next meal, which happens at snack time, which happens at lunchtime, which happens at snack time, which happens at dinner, right? And children who aren't raised with this or aren't used to this experience will test you on it for a while. They
Oh,
may
yeah.
say, right? They may say, all right, I'm not going to eat. What's she going to do? Guess what? You don't have to eat, but I'm not giving you anything else in between. There is no snacking in between. There's no raiding the snack cat cupboard. There's no, I don't want to eat my dinner. And then 20 minutes later saying, but I want a cookie, but I want a kid bar. I want a pouch of some kind. Scheduled meals, and you don't have to eat, can make feeding a magical thing for you, because over time it gives your children it empowers them to eat the foods that you make for them, because again, you know more about food than they do. No matter how little you think you know about food, you know more about it than a 7-year-old, than a 5-year-old, than a 10-year-old, right? You
Yeah.
know more about it than they do,
Oh,
right?
yes. Now,
So
my
they were
thing is, um, I know that cooking foods one way all the time gets boring.
absolutely.
So my and I guess that's why I love cooking so much. I like taking recipes and like, okay, well, why don't I add this and take that out? And I don't even like that, so let's substitute this for that and that, or I'm allergic to that, so I can't eat that. So but this will work. I like to give a variety, the same food made in a different way,
Yeah.
and the kids are like, "Oh, this is something new," and it's the same thing they ate last week. It's the same thing. It just looks differently on the plate. And
So
they're
I'm not
mm,
sure how to pronounce this person's name. Is it Mish or Mitch?
Mitch.
But so what I'm seeing here is that they were frustrated. They want to eat the same food. So that's what happens when kids aren't given those early experiences and given that variety. When kids say, oh, I don't want to eat that, and then we put the box of cereal on the table, or we give them the peanut butter and jelly, and that really
Mhm.
starts to limit the things that they'll accept, right? So the key to getting around that and making new food seem safer is to always offer something that you know your child will eat. And I say your child being the child in your care, your own
Mhm.
child. Always offer at least one thing you know everyone will eat. And if that's just bread, and you're starting to implement new foods, and you offer bread or pasta or the thing you know that they'll eat with
Mhm.
with their meals, they
Yeah.
know they have a safe thing that they can eat. And maybe for a while at that meal they'll only eat bread, and maybe they'll do that for a week, but eventually they will branch out and eat something else. They will surprise you, and they will reach out for that green bean. They'll reach out for even that broccoli, that green food. If you allow a food to be safe, it makes the other food less scary, right? So if you went to a foreign country right now, in a place where you were uncomfortable with, you didn't know any of the foods, all food might seem kind of intimidating to you. And for a child who hasn't had enough experiences with a variety of food and hasn't been empowered at the table, food can seem scary because it's new. So we just offer something that we know that they'll eat, something that we know that they're comfortable with. And if you do that for enough, you give them enough exposures to that way of feeding, they'll surprise you and they'll eventually eat other things.
Yes, they will. I'm a living witness. I when I make my spaghetti sauce, my kids love, love, love. Oh, can we have spaghetti? Can we have spaghetti? Noodles, noodles, noodles. So, and I would put vegetables on the plate, and they look at me like, really, mom?
Right. What is this?
Really? So, what I started doing was the spinach, the zucchini, the carrots, the fresh basil, oregano, thyme, the rosemary, onions, green and red bell peppers. I put it all in the pot got my go grab my favorite marinara sauce, pour it in the pot, throw all those vegetables in there, and cook it. Use my immersion blender because of the onions, the garlic, the basil, and the other herbs. You couldn't taste the vegetables. The vegetables
Right.
took on those flavors. And so I'd mix it up, and then I went and got a spaghetti squash. It was my first time using spaghetti squash. I didn't know if they was gonna like it or not. And it
Right.
was like, is this a new spaghetti? I said, yes, that is
Hmm.
spaghetti. I
It
left
is.
out the squash part, but I
Right.
said, yes, that is spaghetti. Can we have some more sauce? Sure, you can. They didn't know. I mean, I added meat to the sauce too,
Yeah.
but they did not know that it was full of spinach and zucchini. And I don't mean just a little bit. I mean, I grabbed a handful of spinach, cut
Sure.
a couple of zucchinis, grab some carrots and slice them up in there so they'll be easier to grind up. Oh, yes, they had no clue, but they were like, "Oh, mama, this is so good." Oh, yes, it is. And I would always make a big pot, and whatever they didn't eat, I would freeze it for the next time because
Yeah.
I knew the next week they were going to want spaghetti again. Sure, we can
Yeah.
have spaghetti, but not only are you getting what you want to eat, but also getting vegetables and good nutrition at the
Yeah.
same time. So
Yeah.
that white stuff on the plate, they were like, mm. I even went so far as to making garlic bread. Well, I call it spinach bread because my base is cut up spinach, and then
Yeah.
I use some sun dried tomatoes and
Yum.
some basil,
You are
and
making me hungry.
and I put all this and I chop it up and I put some Parmesan cheese because they love cheese. So I put some
Hmm.
cheese. Okay, I'm half of this is gonna be for you, half of it's gonna be for me. So,
Yeah.
well, should I say for me wanting for you to have this? So I put it on some bread, put it in the toaster oven, got it all nice and toasted. It was bubbling, and I let them look. Oh, mama, look at all that cheese. I said,
Right.
yes, it's gonna be so good. And I took it out of the oven. I said, oh, it's hot, 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 hot. Oh, hot. I can eat it while it's hot. I'm good. I said, don't burn your mouth out. No, I can eat it. I said, okay, okay, all right. So then one of my sons put it in his mouth. Well, it's hot, but it's good, mom. And so when the oldest, who is the daredevil, ate it, the rest of them were like, okay, well, let's
Of
say,
course.
let's go
Yeah.
ahead and
You need the leader to do it first, of course.
so if he ate it, they ate it, and we had more spinach and garlic, and it was a new mama. Where do you get the recipe for this cheesy bread? I said,
Nice.
isn't it yummy? I made it up.
Yeah.
It was yummy, and it became a popular staple in our house. If we had spaghetti, we had the spinach bread.
Yes.
So that was a way of getting them to eat spinach in a new way.
Yeah.
And it wasn't completely cooked because it was just blanched on just enough for it to brown, the cheese to melt and to brown.
Yeah.
That they were eating the spinach, and it was a new experience. And when I told
Yeah.
them what they were eating, it became a totally different thing. I did the same thing with smoothies.
Um,
I put the strawberries in there. They put the bananas in there. I put some spinach in there. Ooh, that's gonna be nasty. And then I put some almond milk
all
because
right. Try it.
so I put some almond milk and a little bit of honey, local honey, because three or four of us had allergies. And I turned it on in the blender. And the trick is to use ripe bananas because it makes it sweeter.
Hmm.
And we turned it on in the blender, and yes, it was green. And they were like, ew. So the oldest, the daredevil, oh, that's good, mama. Oh, that's good. And the rest of, oh, let me have some. Let
Oh,
me
I'll
have
have some. Can I try it? Right.
yes.
So
So
you
I
speak to a couple important
one.
things. You trying foods. This is true for your youngest infant. Your infant wants to see you eating. It's one of the signs of food readiness is are they interested when you're eating, right? So they're watching you eat and they're like, I got to get on that. That looks interesting. So
Mhm.
watching you eat things for your sons, it was watching the eldest start to eat something and, the leader. So he led the way for them. He got rid of the scariness of a new food, but also making that food with them and letting them help. For older kids, like toddlers love to help, right? You can get a toddler
Oh,
to eat just
yes.
about anything if you let them help you in the kitchen, right? Get
Yes.
them working with you in the kitchen and they will eat the things that you make.
And let them taste it as you go along.
Yeah. And
That's
ask
the
them.
thing. Would you like to taste it before we put it in here? Or I'll take off a little flavor. Okay, you want to taste it? No. I said, okay, well, I'll just put it on the counter. And I was like, oh, that smells so good. And before I know it, their little hands are picking it up and playing with it. And then they're like,
Yeah.
sometimes they put it down. Sometimes it, oh, that was good. I said, yes, I told you, it's going to be some good carrot and zucchini bread.
Yeah.
They that's one of the favorite recipes that I make with the kids. Either banana bread or carrot and
Oh,
zucchini
yeah.
bread. And even with the banana bread, I add a few carrots and other things up in there. Just because, and I add some flax seed meal, flaxseed meal, and I'll add a few other things that are good for their digestion because so little Johnny is kind of a little constipated, so we go add some extra to
Right.
clean it on out. And they don't have to know it's nutritious. They don't have to know I made this because your
Right.
little.
Exactly. I'm trying to get you to poop right now.
Yes, I would. I said, okay, we're gonna have this is kind of sweet, so we'll have this after we eat dinner, and we're not gonna have a big piece. We're gonna have a little piece. I said, and tomorrow we'll have some more for snack. Oh, tomorrow, yes, you get a bigger piece tomorrow, but we're gonna have a small piece tonight, and we'll save the most of it for a snack tomorrow. Oh, that excites them. They get to make it, they get to taste it, they get to what does
Yeah.
it taste like? And ask them, does it taste sweet? Is it
Yes.
sour? Is it yummy?
Is it
Is
crunchy? Is it
yes,
soft? What does it
yes.
feel like in your mouth? What does it smell like?
And that
Those are the conversations to have at
mhm,
mealtimes instead of, do you want to take another bite? Are you going to eat any more? Instead of
mhm,
having those conversations at the table, ask about the food itself.
yes. Because they will tell you, oh, this is crunchy. Oh, this is spicy. Oh, this is salty. Or this is ask them about the food. Let them become the food
Yes.
critic.
Yes. That's a
You
great
know,
idea.
let them become the food critic. I had a 2.5 year old, Gigi. This is not good. I said, what's wrong with it? It's it's yucky. Okay.
What do you mean yucky? Tell me.
I said, and I told him, I said, it's yucky. Is it too salty? Is it too sweet? Is it too spicy? It's just yucky. It doesn't taste good. It don't taste good.
Use your words. Tell me.
And I was like, okay, so it does taste good. Let me taste it. And that one particular time I said, ooh, it does taste strange, doesn't it? It has a little salt. I taste a little salt. I taste a little sugar. I taste a little spice. I think I used the wrong spice. That may be why it's yucky.
And she probably
Spice.
felt so good knowing something that you didn't know, right?
Yeah.
Just being
The
having a more
smile on their
adult
face.
responsibility.
Yes. The smile on their face, on his face was like, yeah, I got you,
I
Gigi.
got her.
I
Right,
got
exactly. I
you.
got her. Right.
Yes. But
That's so funny.
ask
They called you
them.
Gigi. So I've had nanny kids call me G. I've had nanny kids call me Lena, but it's funny.
Well, they can't say Angela because it's a long name. Of
Right.
course, you
Angelina,
never
I get
know.
it.
They get to I say Angela. Gila. I
G-
had a child call me Gila. I had a child call me
Gila.
Angela.
Cute.
And I was
So
like,
cute.
okay. But Gigi, most of the time, it's just Gigi because that's what they can. It rolls off the tongue, and it
Yeah.
doesn't take much to effort to say. It takes a lot of more effort to say Angela
Yeah.
and, than it does just G.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's there are a lot of things that you can do with your children to get them to eat better.
Yeah.
Try some of the suggestions that we name having sitting down family style dinner. Let them
Yes.
talk to you. Let them talk about food. Have them to help you make it the food. Have them to become the food critic. Let them give them your opinion and what should we have added. So they may have suggestions which will actually make your food taste better if they are
Sure.
in tune with food And
Yeah.
spices, I let the kids taste the spices too. Does this
Yes.
taste salty? Does this taste good? Uh, I had one little boy kept dipping his finger in the barbecue sauce.
Yeah. That's great though. Like
And he was like, this good. This good. I
get to
said,
teach him words like tangy and spicy and
yes,
what
tangy
does
and
that
spicy
smell like?
and sour. And even we were cooking Thanksgiving dinner, we're making the key lime pie, and I
Yeah.
cut off a piece of lime, and I said, "Give me your hand," and I squeezed the juice in there. I said, "Now taste it," and he was like, and then he stuck his tongue in it. I was like, but then he
So
went back to
cute.
war. I said, "I thought
Right?
you didn't like it." He said, "It's ugh." I
Right.
said,
What
"Is
is
that a
taste?
word?"
You
But
need a word for that. Exactly right.
but he kept tasting it on his finger. Can I have some more? So I found
Okay.
out he likes lime.
Yeah.
So we found more things to put lime in because he
Yeah.
liked the taste of lime. And when you find out what your kids like, find different ways to use that, whatever it is that they like, find different ways to use it. Even if it's
Yes.
spaghetti. I mean, you got uh, chicken spaghetti, you got spaghetti noodles in soup. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, put some vegetables in that soup. Here's your noodles with your soup. You know,
That's a great strategy to get kids to try other flavors. Like if you know they like cinnamon, try cinnamon on squash. If they're not familiar with the butternut squash, try cinnamon on squash and say,
yes.
let them put that cinnamon on there. And then they're like, wait, I know
And
this
with
thing.
carrots.
Yeah.
I take saute some carrots with just a little bit of water and butter and some onion powder and
Delicious.
some cinnamon and just a little
Yum.
bit of salt.
I am
And
not talking to you again without eating, Angela. I'm too serious. I can't talk to you next time without eating first
okay.
because I'm so hungry.
I'm sorry.
I'm
I
so
just
hungry right
and my
now.
brain just goes out there
Food, yeah.
and do some fun things with them. Don't just make it all a nutritious thing. Tomorrow,
Right.
I'm going to be creating a recipe on that I found on the internet that
Mm.
I know my grandbabies. Well, this past summer they didn't. They like to come for Nana summer camp. They come from for a whole week,
Oh,
and
lovely.
we make nutritious foods. We make fun foods. And I
Yeah.
found this one. I was like, "Oh, this summer! I cannot wait!" Because if COVID is lifted and all that, if we are good,
Right.
oh my gosh! I found a recipe for some Kool-Aid ice cream.
Oh, yum.
It's three
That sounds
ingredients.
delicious.
And so tomorrow I'm going to share that with my cooking family. There's a, like Angelina said, don't restrict your kids from certain things. Let
Yeah.
them have some. It's going to be
Yeah.
four of them here, and it makes exactly four bowls. And they get to choose what kind of Kool-Aid. I'm going to take them shopping. I always take them shopping so they can learn the value of foods, learn the what food smells like, the texture of it, whatever.
Yes.
Just bringing it in, and it also teaches them when they go grocery shopping how to grocery shop, how to look for the good foods, how to look for, oh, we don't want that one because it's got a bad spot on it. They just go
Yeah.
and pick up an apple and throw it in the basket. But flip
Right.
that apple over. You see that soft spot right there? That apple has
Yeah.
started to rot. So we don't want that one. We want a fresh apple that has no. Teach them how to do all of those things. And that way they'll know how to pick out good fruits. They'll know how to pick out good vegetables. Show them how to store them. Okay, we're going to put this in the crisper pan down at the bottom, the drawer down here, because it
And why
controls
do you do that?
humidity
Right.
and it keeps the food fresher longer. All of those things are important when you're teaching nutrition. If they
Totally.
don't know, if all they know is I don't want to eat that. If they know the process of how to wash it and all these other things, make them work for it. And if they work for it, they will eat it.
Yes. Yeah. If you make it more than just about eating, like it's not like, yeah, we have to eat, but you know, all like, and good healthy food can be fun food. It doesn't have to
Mhm.
be it's either veggies or cookies, right? Like we can make all food and feeding interesting and educational and fun
Mhm.
and delicious, right? We make broccoli
It's a
really
balance.
delicious. Yeah.
It has to be a balance of
Yes.
things that they want to eat and things that you want them to eat. And
Yes.
you being okay with them just eating the chicken nuggets and not
We
make a
need to
big deal
relinquish some
about it.
control.
Right.
Right.
Give them, even with my 2-year-olds and my babies, I give them a choice. I put their stack their clothes together. This goes with that. That goes with that. Because I'm not trying to take you outside. You looking all cray cray. That's just not me. I still have control over it. Okay, which
Yeah.
one would you like to wear? The green one or the pink one?
Right.
And they will choose. And I try to make them interchangeable because they may like the top to this one and the bottom to that one. So I try to make them interchangeable so they kind of go together. Both of them can, go together. So whatever they choose, they made the choice.
Yes.
What shoes would you like to wear with them? You know, I, I don't mind the clothes that I'm on, and that's just me in my head. But
Sure.
whatever shoes and socks you want to wear with it, we're going with it. As long as it's not winter time, and you trying to put on sandals, then
Right.
we're going.
Exactly.
And I
Yeah.
and talk to them. I try to give them choices so that they can have control, and they
Yes.
like having control over whatever it is they're doing. Kids like control over their food too, because it's
Yeah.
going in their bodies,
Yeah.
and we
Well,
teach them how.
that's the feeding relationship, is that we decide we decide what and when and where to eat. Your children decide how much or if they eat at all. You
Exactly.
can start to give your children better choices or give them some of that control over what gets offered as they get older and show eating competence. But if you let a 3-year-old decide dinner every night, they're going to choose cereal or peanut butter and jelly or
Goldfish.
the easy food to eat. Exactly
Yeah.
right. They're going to choose the easy food because it's easy,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But we empower our kids at the table and we can all help do that a little bit more. There's no such thing as perfect in parenting, caregiving, child rearing and raising, but we can all do a little bit better.
Yes. So, do you have any closing words, comments,
Well,
anything?
I've really appreciated your time here and all of your viewers' time here. And if you're responsible for feeding a little person, I would love to see you in the Adventurous Eating group. I think you can find a link here. Angela has
Yeah,
shared that.
I shared the link. It was the first. If you go all the way back up to the top, it is the first comment. I've
Wonderful.
shared the link on there. Um,
And you can find me on Facebook. If you have questions about food and feeding, you can always message me. You can always find me there. That's where I live now.
yes. And if you can't find it, in the link, here it is right here, scrolling underneath there.
Awesome.
Uh, Facebook.com/groups // adventurous eating. Please go join her group and learn more about eating. Learn about, I mean, if you're eating healthy, your child will eat more healthy because
Yeah,
my mom used to tell us we were little birds because we would always want what she was eating.
of
And we
course.
come up and like, yeah, because how birds sitting in a nest and they
Yes.
got the mouth open, oh, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me. So we're
Yes.
sitting around mommy, standing around her little lap, and we're like, can I have
What do
some?
you have?
Can I have
Right.
some? Yes. So if your kids are coming around you and they're like, can I have some? Can I have some? If they're being little birds, feed them healthy. If you're eating healthy, they will eat healthy. Even if you're eating junk food, it's not going to kill them, but please ask permission from the parents before
Yes.
give them the junk food. But it's all about modeling
Yes.
what they eat. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
Uh,
for having me.
I have one announcement. I am launching my Patreon community on March the 27th, and I
Woohoo.
really appreciate your support. Um, I just I followed my son's advice, and he said, "Mom, you have so much knowledge. You need to share it. You need to share it. Go on YouTube. Go on TikTok. Go on this." And I was like, "You must think I'm young."
Well,
So
you show us that you're a lot younger than you think you are.
I followed his advice, and now I have people like, yes, can you do a video on this? Can you do a video on this? Can you show this? Can you talk to us about this? Can you talk to us about that? So I have decided to go. One of my one of the families that I work with. He said, you need to go on Patreon because everybody comes on Patreon, and
Mhm.
then you could talk about and have a group of people that you could talk to, and I was like, well, okay, what's that?
How do I do that?
I
Right.
did not know how to do it. So he had to walk me through it. But I'm officially launching on March the 27th, which is a Saturday.
Awesome.
And I would love, love, love your support. Come join the community. We're going to have lives. We're going to have a community of parents and nannies together. So you can share your experience as a nanny. Uh, Thank you. I joined. Oh, great. All very helpful. Thanks, ladies. See, you have your already. Thank you,
Awesome.
Mitch. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, to get to my Patreon community is patreon.com/AT Nanny. Y'all know I do everything on the Ask the Nanny. So it's AT Nanny. But join me tomorrow at 1:30 Central Standard Time. I will be making that ice cream that I told you about. It's
Yeah.
very simple. It's very easy. The longest part is waiting on it to freeze. So if you make it in the morning so you can have an afternoon treat.
Mm.
So go outside and eat ice cream. But thank you all so much. We'll see you back here next week, same time, same place. Y'all have a good one. Enjoy your week.
Bye.